Hello, I'm Ben. Welcome to the channel. So today I want to talk briefly about an article I read this morning in a psychology periodical. And basically it's talking about something that I think is driving a lot of people to feel more alone than maybe they are. It's called self-alienation. And long story short, what it is when you start changing how you say things or react or do things in public. So the person you are internally is not the person you're showing to the outside world. And it can be even with a spouse, a partner, or a group of friends. The article, I think, was pretty well written. It's by Faye James, and it's called Psychologists Call It Alienation. And this person, the author, realized that they had been doing it for decades. This comes up for me when I'm thinking about conversations with folks, or you're coaching people specifically on how to better manage partners and or even employees, teammates, and things of that nature. If you look at what people are saying inwardly, they feel like they don't fit in places, and a lot of this is because of the fear of not fitting in. So being a child of the 80s and the 90s, back then we didn't care. Back then we were who we were. You made the best friends you possibly could because you were your genuine, deliberate self with these people. They knew how you would respond to stuff just because you always respond the same way. And I think in our adult lives, people kind of put that away and shelve it because they're afraid of how people will respond. So what they end up doing is feeling like they're unheard not because they haven't been talking or speaking, but because what they've been saying is not what they truly think or feel. And it talks about how damaging this is to relationships because people often complain about not being heard or not having a sense of communication and connectivity between two people, when in actuality you're speaking in circles because you're saying everything you want to say, you're just not saying as naturally as you would say it. So it says that small shifts, small deliberate changes, speaking directly, expressing preferences, and allowing discomfort, those are the things that we put away to basically make things more comfortable for others. Years of softening your opinions and editing yourself can lead to a subtle gap between your internal feelings and your outward behavior. This causes, from a psychological standpoint, this causes lower self-esteem, it creates anxiety, and it creates a sense of disconnection. So even if you are not alone, even if you're with people and you're having these conversations with them, by not being yourself and not being who you really and truly are, you basically subtract the relationship and the conversation from your mind. So you don't feel supported. You don't feel like you're a good friend. You don't feel like you're a supportive partner. You think you're doing these things to make the situation better, when in actuality, this is going to cause a wedge at a later date. It calls it the quiet erosion you don't notice. It's only in hindsight that I can see how consistency that quiet adjustments had shaped my life. It showed up in the smallest of ways, the stuff that would be impossible to point out individually. So for example, saying, I don't mind when you do, and letting something pass rather than questioning it, laughing things off rather than fully inhibiting how I felt. Each moment, even though they might seem insignificant, over time, they actually drive dramatic wedges and gaps between people. This self-alienation is subtle, but it's a persistent gap between who you intentionally represent yourself to be and who you truly are internally. Research led by psychologist Alice Wood has shown that when people consistently behave in ways that don't reflect their true thoughts or feelings, the psychological cost is cumulative. It doesn't arrive as a dramatic breaking point, but as something quieter and more enduring, basically lower self-esteem. Anxiety seems like it's an all-time high, guys. That's because people are putting on a mask every time they go out in the world and every time they have conversations. In the last 10 years, we've let social media and the things that push on us actually change how we respond naturally. And with the introduction of people services and all these third-party groups that have been forced into businesses on top of people that aren't operationally effective type groups. It's things that specifically are put there to police languages and police, that diversity and inclusion mindset and all those things. Whereas if you're at a company that makes sense, you hire the best person, period, and you get out of their way. That's how you have the best company. When you hire the best person and you're not looking at things like race or sex or beliefs or any of that jazz, you're hiring the best person based on their qualifications for the role. That's how you build the best company. And so in companies that injected that into their teams shut down. I could see it. I've seen it before where those things were put on teams that made things very uncomfortable. But from a person-to-person standpoint, though, if you can't be who you are with your spouse or with your friends, then who can you be yourself with? So at the end of the day, there's only one of you. If you are not going to allow yourself to be who you are, it is going to have a dramatic effect on you and the relationships you're in over time. So interesting article from a psychological standpoint. It's called Self-Alienation. Thought that'd be something that people would want to hear about and maybe look up and read on so you can see how you're doing that if you are doing those things and trying to correct that behavior. If you will and you like information like this, please subscribe. If you think somebody might get something from this, please share. I'm Ben. Be good.